Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back to Law & Order Legacies. Let's click continue and see what happens. I imagine it may just be a cutscene in which we win the court case, and then we'll be done with episode 1.
Chav Trevino did shoot Alexander Baran. It's true. But the important question is why?
Not really.
Under our laws, the charge of murder may be reduced in the event of extreme emotional distress. His pride and joy. His daughter Rachel ripped away from him forever by a rapist and a murderer who then tried to claim diplomatic immunity and run away instead of accepting his punishment like a man. It was too much. Extreme emotional distress. Chavez Trevino only did what many of us fantasize we would do in his place. Was it right? No. He knows it wasn't right. But at the time, when he acted, right and wrong were drowned out by a raging storm of flashbacks, stress, and injustice. With therapy, he can heal again. Give him that chance. Look into your hearts and ask yourself if Chav Trevino is a cold-blooded murderer like Alexander Baran, or just a brave and broken father doing the only thing that made sense.
So that gets back 25 points with that closing statement. This is your chance to appeal directly to the jury and make the case to them. Pick the topics you feel strengthen your argument and avoid the ones you feel will incite sympathy for Chav Trevino or make you look like a bully. Interesting. So you have to both not incite sympathy or bully him. So, premeditation. So these two are straight out. And it seems like there's no story things here to win. Just go with premeditation. And then if anything else, we'll go with sanctity of justice.
I think the defense would like to confuse you about what is extreme emotional distress and what is a father's natural grief over his daughter's unfair death, to set a precedent that every grieving father has the right to gun down the suspected killer is a very, very dangerous one indeed.
And then we'll go with this.
We agree that within these walls, we must respect due process. We respect the law, no matter how we might personally feel about the defendants before us. Chavez Trevino didn't see it that way. He thought this was just a room, a place where he could barge in and draw a weapon and fire with no regard. Chav Trevino said, "The hell with justice. I want revenge." Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the people have shown you
and I get my 25 back.
Acts were premeditated, not a burst of impulse, not a symptom of his PTSD. Mr. Trevino killed a man in cold blood.
And that was pretty quick. I imagine it was going to be. For this testimony, the jury sides with the prosecution. You won by 40 points. The jury seems convinced by your case. 100 points. We've seen this wrap up say almost exactly the same thing 3 times in a row. And let's think for a moment. Way back 2 hours ago when we were looking for evidence. Like, I would have imagined we would have done a lot more of that at this point. Or maybe just interview more people and get more evidence. Also, none of the evidence we really found mattered at all because the evidence we were finding 2 hours ago were to convict the person that we didn't even have to convict because he got shot.
Have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
And how do you find?
We find the defendant, Chavez Trevino, guilty of murder in the first degree.
Which we couldn't have pleaded for.
We thank you for your service. Defendant is remanded into custody until sentencing.
Mike! Abby!
The headlines aren't pretty, are they, Jack?
I'll take this one on the chin. The only way to wield the power of this office responsibly is through the equal and just application of the law. We don't get to bend the rules. That just leads to chaos. Oh, and good job.
I'm not liking the shadows that are getting casted on the faces of people.
Ray, thought you'd be out having a drink.
Nah, I'm going through some old files on the Preppy case.
Trying to tie the gun to Trevino?
And coming up cold. I wish Lenny was still around. He was good at this kind of thing.
Well, this ought to cheer you up. Turns out, Mickey Trevino is an HVAC contractor for the city.
Okay.
Guess where he did a midnight repair 24 hours before the Alexander Baran trial?
Superior Court. He snuck the gun into an air duct.
Shall we go have a word with him?
So that's episode 1 done, but apparently episode 2 is going to continue from that point. Not a lot of people that worked on this episode, but more than I really thought. Like, when you talk about 3 people for UI art, there's barely any UI art here. Additional art, 2 more people, barely any art in the game. With the QA testers, they all need to potentially be fired for the audio bug, and the audio production, and it probably needs to be fired too. And wow, everybody, including legal and the vice president of marketing, is getting named here just to make the credits look long enough. It's ridiculous. This is almost certainly a budget that was blown because they had the actors and actresses of Law and Order play the characters and voice the characters. Whereas it would have been very helpful probably if they only had the famous actors appear every now and then, and instead had you play as a new detective, a new character. Also, that would certainly allow you to continue this story in any direction you want and go anywhere with it. You could and we get the credits and NBC Universal copyrights that ended in 2012 according to that. So according to that, being 2017, it's all public domain. So I'm confused who these 2 characters are. We didn't even see them in the game, and there were 2 other characters in a different picture. It's also a little weird that it's just these 5 people showing up when where's all the lawyers? Why not put them all on the screen, or fade out this group and fade in the other group? And we'll just right back to this. So the best I could have done was a total score of 59 out of 50. Percentage complete 100%. Detective rank ace detective. And the attorney rank is executive ADA. Alright. So I suppose that's the reason, is that you get score combined, but separate for your detective and separate for your attorney. So potentially in episode 2, we could screw up the detective's work and be really good with the attorney work, or really good with the detective work and really bad with the attorney work, which would be odd. But I couldn't imagine ever wanting to do that again. It's not like the story's gonna change, and having the knowledge beforehand would make it easier to get all 59 points, but it'd be very boring. Very, very boring. You almost need to go extremely ambitious for a game like this and have it randomize who the killer is and make it like a game of Clue, and throw out evidence in some playthroughs that isn't mentioned in other playthroughs. Have a gun in one scene, but then next time you play it, the gun isn't in his hand. at all, or it's a knife, and make things change to make it replayable if you want it to be replayable. Telltale games have never really been replayable though, and we didn't take the plea deal. So now, home to roost, where you only have 38 scores, so it's not even going to be that long, and it's 1999. Bristow and Curtis investigate the apparent stabbing death of a little-known Rydo, revealing his unusual hobby. Wait a minute. So that happens in 1999. This supposedly, I guess, just is going to happen in current day. Let's see. Is there really any story to any of this? Two serial killers point their fingers at each other. And see, this is 58. This is a classic part of the pre-order DLC scheme that is episodic gaming. Telltale's one of the worst offenders of it. You have 2 hours of content for the first episode, and what feels like maybe an hour and a half worth of content for the next one. And then I imagine, even though this has a high score, it will still only be about an hour and a half of content. This one is 1999. It seems like you're going to go back and forth. This one has 67 points, but I imagine well, we've wasted a lot of time here. Let's go ahead and play episode 2. Loading.
In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by 2 separate yet equally important groups: the police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories.
The blue is supposed to be for the police. The red is supposed to be for the prosecution. I don't know where they get red for the prosecution, but
Coming, sweetie.
but the yellow for Legacies makes no sense at all. And it actually is a terrible name if you're gonna
Neil?
translate it differently,
That you?
because it implies that you'd be playing as the children of police and prosecutors, the legacy of the law
Did you see
and the order.
anything when you opened the door? Anybody on the street? A car?
No, nothing at all.
What?
At first I thought it was some kind of prank, but then I looked down and...
Is that blood on his coat, or
Neil.
just a shadow?
Okay. Yeah, that's all.
It's probably a shadow.
Some prank.
Yeah, well, sounds like he was a real cut-up.
And so this is supposed to be 1990. If anything, the order should be white, or like the scales of justice, or
What's that,
white
goulash?
wigs.
Get it out of here, Ray, for God's sake.
What's the matter? Doesn't smell too bad to me.
No, it smells too good.
It seems
Julia's
like
got me on a
they're
health food diet.
making
She's got
him
this
look a
crazy
little
idea
bit
high blood
younger,
pressure's
but
a
not
bad
that
thing.
much.
Sounds like a real nut. I give it 3 weeks.
The diet or Julia?
Both.
Rogers just dropped off the report on Neil Jensen. Exsanguination.
Poor guy bled to death.
Well, that would explain all the red stuff.
So the boss seems to be maybe a little bit younger, but maybe exactly the same character model. Let's see. Lieutenant Van Buren can supply valuable information about the case. Ask her about the victim's wounds by selecting the topic button. So now we're interrogating our boss instead of just, you know, reading it in a report, which would be a better system. Better than looking at a blank white box, at least.
How many cuts we talking about?
Over a dozen, but most of them are superficial.
And we're playing
Victim
as the
bled out
old
from a
guy.
deep laceration to the femoral artery.
Like, how could we... Why would we even doubt our boss? Like, do these wounds match the cause of death? As far as I know, I'm gonna say yes. Van Buren reported the cause of death was extermination or death by dying. Van Buren said the cause was anybody's guess. Van Buren reported the death was exsanguination or fatal loss of blood. Alright, Lieutenant Van Buren can help reveal more information about Neil Jensen's murder. Ask her about any of the new topics. New topics revealed. Do we really need that? Little animation. I guess you do, since this game is so short on effects and animation. Like, they're literally hiding the faces because they haven't animated the faces to do too much.
Time of death?
4:17 a.m. Apparently, the guy was still
I
alive when
suppose
his wife found him, but
this
just
could have
barely.
been a
Blood
DS
trail
game.
leads down to the curb, then disappears.
That might
He got to die
explain
at
some
home.
of it.
When did he get wounded?
Around 2.
Slow bleeder.
Instead
We've
of a
all got
Wii
problems.
game. Yeah, that would actually make a lot of sense. I hadn't thought about this. If this was a Nintendo DS game, you would put the boxes and all the touchpad on the bottom screen because the top screen on a DS doesn't have a touch screen. And then it would make all the sense in the world that characters on the top screen would just bounce their head up and down, and it would take up the entire screen to do this. But oddly, I don't believe that's the case. But it may have been in development at some point. Did he die instantly of his wounds? No. He wouldn't have been able to crawl to the door. Wow, these are some really dumb responses. He's 2 hours from the bleeding out, or 1 hour? What report was this? Wendy gets stabbed around 2, and then when did she open the door? We have to go back to this. Okay, 4:17 a.m. apparently. That's when he died. He got stabbed around 2, which is 2 hours. If I can do the math. Which I think I did. So let's talk about the weapon now.
What do we know about the weapon? Switchblade, maybe?
Right length, but Roger says it was curved, like a scythe.
Our victim was done in by a midget Grim Reaper.
That was one of the things we could say.
Anything we can use to ID the perp?
No fingerprints, but it appears some of the blood on
Bad
Jensen's
writing.
clothes wasn't his own.
Our victim got in a
Honestly.
few good jabs before he went down, huh? What does the lab have to say?
Results aren't
Oh,
back
it
yet.
was made
Any
for
minute now.
Apple iOS. So maybe that's what they were targeting. I don't know how
Van Buren.
making a game like this makes it any better on the
Really?
iPhone.
How do they... Elliptical and nucleated. Got it. Well, let us know if you find out anything else. That was the lab.
Elliptical and nucleated?
The red blood cells? Turns out it's not human. It's bird blood.
What kind of bird?
A dead one, I'm guessing.
The victim was stabbed with a pelican.
Just terrible jokes. So we've increased our detective rank, and I imagine you might quickly be at the maximum, or you start your detective rank over at 0 each episode.
Hold off a minute, Lenny. I got something here.
Look at that
Jensen's
background.
nanny. She's waiting to catch a bus, but I don't see it coming yet.
Then let's not waste any time.
Mind if we ask you a few questions?
She's talking on the phone in 99. Let's see. What's your relationship with the deceased?
Did you know Neil Jensen very well?
You mean, were we lovers?
That wasn't where I was going.
But since you brought the subject up...
No, he was my employer, that's all. I liked him, though. We had a lot of good talks. He was interested in stuff, you know? Ideas. He was really interested when he found out I was a Wiccan. He liked to ask questions.
Does this rule her out as a suspect? No. Haven't had time to check her alibi. Nannies are always lying about something Briscoe said in front of young ones. Curtis believes her. Why can't you rule her out just yet? Well, we haven't been able to check her alibi yet. We don't even know what her alibi is. She didn't give an alibi. I guess we can ask about Wiccans.
Wiccans. Don't they sometimes sacrifice animals? Pigeons? Chickens?
No, we in the Wiccan community revere life in all its forms. God, people have such ignorant ideas.
No, you're thinking of voodoo.
Hey, not every hunch pans out.
It's odd that the game rewards you for finding red herrings, when in reality it probably should punish you or shut down the conversation completely. And I don't think it could shut down the conversation, so it should punish you or just say something funny, but in the long run, waste your time. Let's see.
Where were you Wednesday morning at 2 a.m.?
In bed. Where else?
Here?
I only work days. I live in Bedford-Stuy. Check with my parents if you don't believe me.
Okay. Is it a plausible alibi? Sure. She seems a little too old to be a nanny living with her parents. Let's see. No one from Bed-Stuy would lie about their whereabouts. Van Buren. I'll take that. it kind of feels like you're just starting over again after first episode. And oddly, even for a game based on an episodic TV show, this game being episodic doesn't feel right. I would have much preferred to play as the detectives and do a lot of interviews on a lot of casework, a lot of searching for clues, and then play as the lawyers and try to win one really big important case. And they try to play it both ways because it seems like more than likely by the time we get to episode 5 there will be this underlying big case, but it won't be the main focus. The other thing to mention too is Telltale at this time is more than likely hired 4 different writers, or in this case 6 different writers, to write each of the episodes, so that stories might play out completely different. Although that might not actually be the case in this instance. It's what they did in Walking Dead Season 1, but they may simply have just used the writers from the TV show.
How did Mr. and Mrs. Jensen get along? Did they fight?
All married couples fight sometimes, I guess. I don't plan to get married myself.
I used to say that too.
Yeah, I said it a bunch. Yeah, never did me any good.
But not everybody fights in front of the nanny.
Press the topic further? Sure. These are odd choices that just pop up. Why? The nanny's cute. The nanny is being unhelpful and combative. The widow stated her nanny was acting suspicious. Fighting in front of a nanny could be a sign of serious marital tension. And we've got some new topics. Fighting.
What did Mr. and Mrs. Jensen fight about when they fought?
The usual. Money. I guess he was better at spending it than making it, and new babies cost a lot. He was pretty pissed when she cut off his allowance.
Allowance?
Interesting.
How old was he, 12?
Hey, don't tell her I told you that. I want the nice as it is.
Could there be trouble in the Jensen's marriage? Yes. Totally could be. Yeah, but when you ask a question like could, the answer is always yes. Which conclusion is not supported by the nanny's words? Ooh, this is interesting. They're throwing in which is not true. The tension between her and Mrs. Jensen. There was tension between Mr. and Mrs. Jensen. The Jensens fought about the baby. They fought about money. We didn't hear him fight about the baby. How do you fight about a baby after it's born? Really? You're changing the diaper the wrong way. Or yeah, I don't know what you fight about with a newborn after it's already born. You just try to struggle through it and not lose your mind.
Here's my bus. Gotta run.
We got all we need out of her. Come on, let's talk to the widow.
Yeah, because it's a terribly stupid thing to just say, here's my bus, gotta run, while you're talking to the police. They'll chase after you and arrest you. Well, that's it for this episode, and it is also it for me for today, so it'll be interesting to see if I remember what has happened up to this point next time I play. It won't be a big issue, certainly, because we really haven't done anything. We got all the bonus stars possible, so I believe we might be at 100% so far, but we'll drop the ball eventually. That's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.